Forward Base Sawano at Xeno Island by Tactical Cat. Episode 11 Till I Die, Part 1. The following morning, Xeno Island heaved above the waves like a punished creature, licking its wounds in an alley corner. The silvery drops of footfalls rippled down the halls of Sawano Base and silenced any passing voices into submission. Quiet and solemnity reigned over unacknowledged anxieties. The frantic bustle of mechanics and personnel belied the suffering morale that had spread like a plague upon the Jewel's return the previous evening. As the first sailor had stepped off the ramp to the dock, gaseous rumors had diffused throughout the island and lodged in the mess hall. The Admiral and Lieutenant Angela had tried swatting the rumors dead before the captain's return, but, unable to evidence a conclusion about their veracity either way, they found their incessant buzzing persistent. The captains were exceptionally restrained upon arrival that evening. Astutely uncertain about the loyalty of even Sawano Base, Ken had kept alert in case there happened to be traitors under Admiral Nao as well. Upon resurfacing, he peeked over the hatch of the coordinate with a giant weapon, hoisted in both hands, handle in front, trigger behind. As a light machine gun, Tranquility was almost half his body size and about double his weight. He could barely lift it, but the immense amount of ammo stored in the belt casing assuaged his anxieties about missing shots. If he had 1,000 tries, it didn't matter if he missed on occasion. There was an implicit, unspoken solidarity in their steps when they marched silently up to the Admiral's cabin, dragging their hooded rescuers and a stretchered Thomner along. The rest of the evening passed them by as they remained locked behind that door that contained the fate of the world. "So, before we begin," observed Admiral Nao, "something has been annoying me all evening." He directed his attention to the 3 men who had saved the jewels. Toby had threatened to consign them to the brig unless they kept their hoods off before the Admiral, and they were the first to catch his notice upon entry. "What in Ron C are the legendary old farts doing in my office so shamelessly? I got promoted to replace you, Alfonso. No one should get promoted just because some incompetent old fart up and died in the line of service and left his entire ship to a subordinate in the middle of combat. I mean, I really like my ship now and no, you can't have it back. But seriously, I skipped about 3 commissions thanks to you. That's ridiculous." They were stunned. As the newest captain, Ken had only heard stories about the legendary old farts who had predated the current captains, but he understood at the very least their reputation. He merely listened, entertained by the development. "LJB," continued Nao censoriously, "imagine trying to paint the whole of your ship with pink and purple stripes, and slapping E equals MC squared on the deck even though you aren't a nuclear Nimitz class. Imagine how hard it would be to get permission to do that. We aren't the Air Force with pretty girls on the sides of our ships, you know. It was so hard getting that inscription past all of the sob fraternity politicians and court-martial cases, and now your inscription's useless." The captains could barely contain their laughter, and the old farts gleamed with pride to receive a scolding by their junior as their first welcome. Even Thulner, who had been expressly prohibited movement by Petty Officer Choconut, could barely keep his chest from bursting. "You all have a lot of explaining to do," Nao went on. 2 years and then you show up making heroic declarations as Nigel's about to murder my captains." He paused to take a breath. "Dufferus, I'm going to let Yuki yell at you. Where's R2S?" Alfonso, who had shielded Thulner before, stepped up to deliver his report heroically. Now that he had removed his hood, they could catch inklings of his age in his whitening brown beard and shaggy long hair. "Oh, he's actually dead, Admiral," Alfonso explained. "Oh," replied a dejected Admiral Nao. R2S had been the first Lunarian penguin the captains had met, and he had introduced them to a young hatchling atom still enclosed in half an egg. Well, I suppose the inscriptions weren't entirely useless then, admitted Nao. I was hoping we'd get to. Well, nothing we can do. I got out what I needed to. Let's get to the real business, and welcome back. That's it. Ken set down his clipboard on the Admiral's desk and leaned back in his chair. They had been giving the Admiral their briefing reports. We met the smiling dolphin and ran. Nao crossed his arms on his seat and looked to the side, deep in thought. You're telling me that the Fleet Admiral and his entire task force have defected, Nao clarified. They all nodded or hummed their confirmation. He then turned to the old farts standing behind the captains. Do any of you know what the Admiral wants? Why did he fire on us like this? How long has he been working against us? Dofferus stepped forward. 2 years ago, explained Dofferus, Admiral Nigel watched his task force disintegrate. The enemies had introduced a new weapon into the war, not like the lasers that the world saw under your command, but the green jelly that has turned the entire Eastern Sea into a waste. The harshness of the front lines has made him despair of ever winning this war. He no longer has faith in humankind and has forsaken this planet to the aliens. The jelly goo, Yuki translated Adam's correction. The goo, continued Dofferus, actually aquaforms the oceans so the aliens can inhabit it. They're not carbon-based, and they can't respirate aerobically like Earth's species. They need the goo to survive. They live in it and breathe the stuff. Has anyone ever seen one of these aliens? Prodded Admiral Nao. Oh, they're microscopic, clarified LJB. The captains and Admiral were dumbfounded. You telling me we've been fighting bacteria for 5 years? Exclaimed Thulner. But if you knew all this, interjected Toby, what have you been doing all this time? Why was no one else informed? Dofferus continued again. After our fleet was destroyed, Admiral Nigel reported us dead and returned to command a new fleet. Only R2S died that day. LJB and I spent a year in POW camps until the Federation freed the island base where we had been imprisoned. He took off his eye patch to reveal an old wound from what looked to be a drop that had gouged a hole in his eye. It was impressively creepy, with some of the tissue scarred greenish. Alfonso was declared a defector in the Admiral's report, so he had to clear himself before returning to service. Turns out UCMJ military justice takes a while. A wave of nods responded. We old farts have been chasing after Admiral Nigel at the vertical boundary layer cleaning up ever since that day. When he takes a new base and starts pumping out more goo, we're there to infiltrate and destroy the source. Usually underwater, so we can do it secretly. He looked at Ken. It seems as if he finally caught on to what we were up to and you got the first taste of it. That explained why Admiral Nigel had prepared the smiling dolphin for him. Now that we're back, offered LJB, who had carried the impressive rifle onto Toby's deck, the jewels are yours, fair and square. You've earned them. He slapped Toby in the back quite violently. For all their eccentricities, these legendary old farts can never be accused of lacking enthusiasm. I'm proud to see my pupil in the art of long-distance cover fire doing so well, went on LJB. Got that right, declared Alfonso triumphantly, extending a congratulatory fist toward Thulner, who was listening patiently in his stretcher, doing his best to remain still. Alfonso wasn't as tall as Thulner, and his build in comparison paled into mediocrity, but, like Thulner, he had a reputation for a gigantic heart that had spilled into his combat preferences and made him a formative member during Thulner's first years in combat. We're just gonna help from here on out, normal crew members. If you need an extra torso or a few limbs, you know where to look. Dofferus, however, said no words to his pupil, but focused on the Admiral and the topic at hand. And so, he said, we're all in this mess thanks to him. I am not happy, concluded Nao. Admiral Nigel will likely be court-martialed under the UCMJ after this is over, and then executed for treason against humanity. Solemn effect washed over the party. But this assumes he gets that far. I don't foresee the Fleet Admiral living out this war. They understood immediately what he was implying. As harsh as it seemed, it was also a mercy that could spare him the formality and judgment of the already certain court trial. I want to know what he's thinking. I want him to explain and justify his every action to me starting 2 years ago. He's going to account for every slice of onion he ate and every bathroom trip he took for 730 days. And when he does... He scanned the eyes of each captain, as if engraving his fury into their auditory cortices. Forward Base Sawano will join Fleet Admiral Nigel's task force, or there won't be a task force after this war is over. He typed into a few holographic keys floating above the conference desk, and then a giant red button flipped into view in the middle. The old farts smiled, and the captains leapt from their seats. What he has done is unforgivable, he announced, slamming a fist onto the button. Tomorrow, we destroy them and finish what Fleet Admiral Nigel started. Let's end this once and for all. For real this time. There was no further discussion that evening. The captains adjourned and proceeded to file out. As the damage to the jewels had been minimized thanks to the legendary Old Fart's intercession and the captain's quick adaptation, the mechanics had a more reasonable amount of maintenance to complete. Filner and Yuki had been unavoidably ordered back to save, but before appeasing P.O. Choconut, Yuki caught Dofferus on the way out. "Were you unable to send communications?" she inquired solemnly. "I admit, I don't know what to think. I was beginning to accept how much I would never learn from you." He only replied with a gentle, knowing smile. "The first year there was no way to make contact from within enemy lines," he explained. "The second year we spent in constant hiding. At first we tried to transmit communications of various sorts, but the nearest friendly base was here, and the only way to contact Sawano was by radio, which would have given our locations away." He was certain that Thulner and Toby must have been proposing similar questions for Alfonso and LJB. The legendary Old Farts had been their mentors for years, responsible for training them with the crystalline weapons. He looked Yuki in the face. "I never meant to abandon you," he thought. With Nigel's recent activities and the discovery of the moles at Sawano, the spotlight on us finally reduced enough to allow escape from enemy territory. We tried on multiple occasions before then, but we were always discovered. Yuki made no response, except for the smallest tinge of restrained disappointment. "It's fine. I don't blame you. None of us do," she explained. He waited for a sigh that never came. "We've just been lost. My sword has been rejecting me these past days," she continued. "Ever since you disappeared, I have felt unworthy of it, as if it's the answer for a question that I haven't asked yet. As if the world I trusted once is breaking apart." Her eyes projected a deep intensity that seemed to have lodged behind her pupils years ago. "And it's not just me. Thulner-san has become increasingly reckless. It's as if he doesn't care about his life anymore. And Tobias-san is just absent, consistently distant, as if his mind was left on that battlefield years ago and never caught up with him." Dofferus nodded. "He focuses well on work," she continued. "Actually, Toby's more efficient now, but that's all there is." I see, acknowledged Dofferus. He sounded almost conspiratorial. You three are so similar. He pointed to his eye patch. Actually, you aren't the only one to have felt lost and rejected. I have no depth of vision now. I've had to relearn how to assess distances and the angle of my strokes. She looked up at him with the surprised satisfaction of new understanding playing at her pupils. I'm still a student too, he qualified. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. Even without Admiral R2S, we found a way to make it work, and here we are. He gave the relieved sigh. I never thought we'd ever see Sawano Base or you guys again. His remaining eye sparkled behind a gossamer sheen of light. I'm not worried at all, he assured her. After all this time, I know your sword must have gotten faster and sharper. There's nothing else I had to teach you. What I'm hearing is that you three are still doing your best and working your hardest. No need to worry at all, then. You'll come out of the tunnel all right. What? And she stifled her breath. He could read the doubt on her face. He burst out. I know it's hard to believe me given the situation, but at this point, as regards the sword, it's really just a matter of honing what you already knew. The gears turned in her brain and steam sizzled out. Let me prove it to you, he suggested. Let's spar again after we end this war. She nodded, eyes glimmering as she processed what he had said. I want to see that beautiful blade of yours again, he concluded, gleaming in the white dawn. John trembled in his blue coveralls, hugging the wall away from the docks as closely as was feasible. They were way too high up. A wrong step was doom. Yesterday, upon reporting for duty after lunch, he had been surprised to find Senior Chief Annie running about the docks in a frenzy as everything rose into the air, waters slinking away back to their ocean caverns. John, called Jane from the edge of the dock. Take a look. It's the Vogel and Keefe. He even has power cables now. Kawaii! Work had been torturous the past few days as they reshaped the fleet. Again. Ever since Seaman Doe's betrayal, they had had to pick up extra work. Traitor or not, he had been a productive member of the team. John crawled over toward the overhang, where some of the mechanics, including Jane, were enjoying a clear ocean view below. See? She pointed. You can see the little gray speck of the coordinate down on the waves. An oblong shadow dragged across the ocean surface, shading the jewels below, like a mother with a train of chicks. Whoa, it's the XLTT. They look so pathetic from here. Yeah, I see it, replied a nauseated John, as the jewels receded into smaller and smaller specks. Are we getting even higher? Why'd you ever join the Navy? Jane teased him. The Navy is on the ocean, not the air. Sailboats, not airboats. I didn't think the bases I'd be assigned to would fly, he retorted. When he asked Senior Chief Annie for details this morning, she had provided a brief rundown of what had happened late the previous evening, much of it overheard from chatter in the dining hall. Fleeing from Tritium Base and the surprise attack by Fleet Admiral Nigel, the jewels had been picked up and moored into base. Rumors about a massive betrayal had conquered the mess hall and spread as the base personnel tried to navigate the emotions of a strategic failure but a tactical triumph. And life had been quiet until early this morning, when the Admiral had delivered a base-wide memorandum through the comms. This is Admiral Nao speaking. The rumors you've been hearing in Nature's Kitchen are all true. So much for Lieutenant Angela's orders to kill rumor. Admiral Nigel and his entire fleet seem to have defected. In light of these recent developments, the captains and I have decided to move the front line. We're taking the warfront directly to Admiral Nigel to end this war once and for all. In pursuit of this goal, I've decided to join our jewels. If you're new to Forward Base Sawano, allow me to introduce my ship, the S Dream and Trick and Lie and Tic Tac Last 1, So What, Alt S Command Shine and Ring and Live S String and Lie 2, 121 AZ, Connor Dream and Trick and Lie, Tic Tac Last 1, So What, Alt S Command Shine and Ring and Live S String and Lie Kawasu to a word ENCODE. And that was why John now found himself a mile up into the air, facing down a phobia he didn't realize he had. Forward Base Sawano was not merely a conveniently located island that happened to mark the boundary between Allied and enemy territory. Forward Base Sawano was a ship, a flight-capable carrier that happened to be the chief of the 6 jewels. This hunk of metal, hidden in an island, was capable of carrying all of the jewels in dock during flight, and its armaments were roughly equivalent to what Admiral Nigel had presented them with at Tridion Base a few days before. Stin's AZ division had had a secret project under development ever since that fateful day 2 years ago, when Admiral Nao assigned the fleet's top researchers and scientists to this project. Fleet Admiral Nigel had no idea what was heading his way.